Welcome back. This is Liam with the second video in what's going to be a short series about freeing up the shoulder girdle. And in today's video, it's a lot about the head and neck, or the upper half of that. And this also came in response to someone had written saying if I had anything to say about how to free up a tight jaw, or the impression I got was kind of a chronic clenching thing. And I think this will really help with that as well, because probably, of course, as many of you know, I'm in this boat that the body is very, very connected, and something like a tight shoulder girdle and a tight jaw can very easily be sort of expressions of a fundamental misalignment. So, the movement activity is going to involve moving the head while keeping the jaw released, and it has a really similar tone to, if you watched the last video, we were talking about and doing spinal undulations while letting the shoulder girdle stay relaxed, as opposed to kind of using it to pry open the outside. So yeah, this would be the one that we want, while the shoulder girdle is kind of, the shoulders are sort of riding like ships on like an inner wave, inner ocean. Have that same principle where the cranium is able to move, and the mandible, the jaw, that will have the tendency to take over in places where we sort of lose track of the cranium. And that's where we, just like the spinal undulation thing, where we slow down and feel into it and let that proprioceptively and interoceptively, kind of the feeling state of it, wake up. So the two basic movements that I'm going to propose you do this are front and back and side to side. The side-to-side movement is much smaller, so and therefore usually more difficult. Front and back is going to be easier to access, so I suggest we start there. You can stand, you can sit, but either way, take a moment to focus on yourself when you're ready and on the sort of feeling state and position of your body. And I'll show from the side. I start by shearing forward and shearing back. What's most important, this is a range of motion activity secondarily. Primarily, it's a quality of movement activity. And quality, less like good quality or bad quality, though you could say that within a relative context. Quality of the engine of it is coming from your deep neck and head, or I often think about the base and the skull, the base of the skull when I'm cueing people in this movement, which I do, and not the jaw. So, front and back, you might feel, especially at the end range, the jaw to kind of like want to take over and get a little bit further. Releasing that and staying at that end range, going a little bit further, and you might feel some sort of tension building up here. That's a great sign. That means, okay, beautiful, you're doing the work. So staying in that space, doing your best to release the jaw and derive from the head and neck. Same thing pulling back. Here. Jaws released. So, front and back. Same idea, side to side. So it's not a side bend, but more a shift, a side shear. So I'm keeping my cranium on the same relative plane that it's on in relationship to the floor, and shifting to one side and then the other. You can look in a mirror if you have, in which might be really helpful, a tough time to even see what you're doing. But once you have the general feel of it, if you go a little bit off course, off of that axis, that's okay. What matters most in this particular exercise in my book is the shearing and noticing when you kind of like want to start leading with your jaw. Here, and letting again that release. Doesn't need to be totally slack-jawed, but just not driving from there. And then the other side, kind of finding that, so it's actually a little lift to stay neutral on the side that you're going, but very small. But as opposed to, again, a side bend where it drops, it's kind of staying up. If I do this well, especially when I first started doing this kinds of activities, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I could feel, it'd be like an intense, sometimes even sort of headachy sensation. So, like with the spinal undulations, and probably even more so here, a little bit can go a long ways. Also, like the spinal undulation, you can do this in sort of one of two camps. One would be as an isolated exercise, where you do maybe 10 front back and 10 side to side. You can even do the same concept with rotation, right? Where I'm leading with the eyes instead of the jaw. Side to side, and ultimately, any sort of plane is where we're going. But you could do 10 in each direction, front, back, maybe some rotations. And the other sort of camp of this would be to incorporate this into whatever kind of movement practice you already have. Or even, I don't know, something like a seated meditation if it makes sense there, or really throughout your day. But to me, it has a little more substance than relax your jaw, because it's relaxing your jaw while doing something else. And that neurologically and maybe mechanically, I'm not sure what the main kind of impetus for that is, or what the main lens of that would be, but can really help free up that tissue. So maybe in a yoga pose or something while you're rotating your head, or while you're lifting through the crown of your head, right? That it's less coming from here, or if it is that you intend it that way, and that it's not, these two things are coupled without, oh, this can release while I'm getting lengthier, or forward, or back, or rotationally, or the side. So again, camp number 2 is how it sort of mixes into your movement practice on its own. Very much affecting, hopefully, and freeing up the cervical vertebra, which very much affect the downstream tissue of the shoulders, and affecting things like we talked about last time, ability to do ultimately every range of motion with my shoulder. So I hope this helps. Let me know how it goes. Thanks people who have been writing and telling me about how they've kind of incorporated this throughout their day or into their practices. That's cool to hear. So if you have a story like that, good or bad or indifferent, lay it on me, and we'll do at least 1 and maybe 2 more videos about, again, specifically this sort of upper thoracic shoulder girdle neighborhood and how to free that up. So hope you're well. Adios.